You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again. And today we have another special guest today. Today we're going to be talking to David R. Edwards. And he worked his way through school, eventually achieving an MBA in healthcare administration. He has served mostly lower income people on 3 continents over the last 35 years and is familiar with the challenges and unfairness of life. We're going to learn a little bit about Edwards today. And our topic for the show, we're going to discuss life is about change, both being intentional about change you want and also adapting to the inevitable and escalating change. How does one do that in balance? So without further ado, welcome to the show, David. How you doing, man?
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks so much. And is it Shamaya?
Yes, sir. Right on the money. That's it.
Love it. That's a cool name.
I appreciate that, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into today's topic and learn about your career.
Yeah, I'm a pretty average person, I think. I started with very, modest upbringings. I was the first in my family to go to college, in fact. And I got my bachelor's in business and a master's in healthcare administration, which took me a long time. I mean, I almost didn't allow me to graduate because it took so long and the program had changed and all that stuff. But it was something I did on my own, with my own money and own time and when I had time. And so it took a long time, but I was always grateful for the exposure that gave me. Anyways, I worked, as you noted, on 3 continents, mostly in the Western United States, however, working with a lot of different healthcare organizations, everything from cardiology care to integrated tribal health system with hospitals and clinics and physical therapy and eyeglasses and a sweat lodge and everything in between, to integrated primary care.
And for today's topic, life is about change, both being intentional about change you want and also adapting to the inevitable and escalating change. I'm sure there's a story behind that topic. So for you in your personal life, what were some of the changes that you had to face that allowed you to have an opportunity to adapt to it and to stick with the process to become who you are today?
Yeah. So, like most of us, we've all had some kinds of trauma in our lives. And we hopefully, right, those are not wasted moments. Those are some things that we learn from. And I've been broke and I've done very well. We've had challenges in our family and all kinds of normal things that you would think of. But I think as the kind of the nexus for this kind of ideas and kind of when I really made my thinking more explicit around this idea of change and change management, I was working as a CEO of a community health center in rural Oregon, so in the Western United States. And we had the marvelous opportunity to build a brand new health center. It was going to be twice the size, like 40,000 square feet, $16 million budget. And we had a really wonderful team of people. We had a good computer systems, and we had created a model of healthcare that basically said you as the patient are the center. And what you need then is what we hope to provide based upon each individual. And so some people only need very little. Some people are going to need a lot. We tried to have the things that you would need for your specific situation, but nothing that you didn't. So we wanted to be effective and efficient. But the model was built upon you as that individual to be the captain of the care team. And by extension, the captain of your own life. And as we were designing the facility and we worked with staff from all levels of the organization to make sure we were getting all these different perspectives and talking to our patients and focus groups and all that kind of stuff. I had this epiphany, this wow. And it was that if we can't help a patient to fill that role as the captain of the care team, our effectiveness from this wonderful model that we've created and the new facility that we're designing and all the computer systems, all the other things that we're backing it up, if they weren't able to fill that role, they didn't have the skill sets, then we were going to have really minimal increase in effectiveness. And I really started to deep dive into, well, what does that mean? Because I hate it when you talk to people or you hear people and they make these broad statements like, you got to do better, or we got to be in charge of our life, or, whatever it is, know your values. But then they don't really talk about how do you do that? Because anyways, so I was going through this, and as a result, I was studying change models. And there are any number of authenticated, researched, effective models around change. And so I was studying them, working very closely with our behavioral health folks to help me understand some of these different models. And what I realized, and this was really kind of the second wow moment, was that at the core of every one of these models of change is personal or intrinsic motivation. When I say that, Shemaiah, what does that mean to you? What do you think of when I say intrinsic motivation?
To me, that sounds like a situation where the individual, the responsibility is put on themselves for them to actually follow through with whatever ideal change or action that they want to follow through with. So it's more than just a thought. It's actual movement of their body and mind together.
Very good. Thank you. And I don't know that there's a perfect right answer, but that's a great answer, and I appreciate that. It does. It is kind of implicit in this is this idea is that I'm responsible for my own life. And while I recognize that there are lots of outside external influences, some of them powerful, entrenched, and very difficult and challenging to deal with. But when it comes right down to it, the difference between person A and person B is whether they feel like they're responsible for their own life and doing whatever it is that they can, recognizing that there are some things that you just cannot, you can't change, right? They're beyond your control. And so as I studied that, as I thought about it, I thought there are some people who think that is either you got it or you don't. Like you were born with it or you were raised with it, and then good for you, congratulations, or you don't got it and you're out of luck. And what the research told me and my own life experience told me was that is absolutely not true. What is true is that anybody can learn to be the captain of their own life. Anybody can work on that intrinsic motivation. They can uncover it, they can unbury it, they can resurrect it perhaps. They have the power to do so. And so that particular job, I was fired. There was something I had to overcome. But I had time on my hands. And so I really spent the next year or so reading, further researching, writing, and created a small business built upon what I had learned. But it was a couple of months later, the pandemic hit. You guys remember the pandemic?
Man, you tell me about it.
And so, for those people listening to your podcast, 10 years from now, it might be a distant memory, but for us right now, right, it's still here. There's a new variant and all that stuff. But the pandemic hit in a really heavy way, serious way. And my business model was built on partnering with other like-minded organizations to bring this understanding that I had achieved and to share that with their employees and with their patients. And it was a bad time to try to do that because they were so busy just keeping their businesses going and all the things that entailed. And so I worked at it for about a year or so and realized it wasn't going to happen, at least not right now. And I thought, I've done all this work, I've done all this research, I've done all this writing. I'd created videos and training materials and different things. And I thought, I got enough. I could actually write a book. And I may be a little slow, I think, sometimes, because it took me about a year to actually write the book. But I just published it in January. It's called New You, Who Knew? And it basically is a guide to the 10 principles that I discovered. And I didn't create any of these, but, things that I don't think are put in quite this way, written to an audience of just your average everyday people, frontline workers, the average people that we see, and that help us every single day at the grocery store, at the Home Depot, on the subway, or, whatever it is. These people we're all over the place. They have to get more done with less resources typically. And I really wrote the book for them. And let me see where I want to go with this now. The 10 principles combined, as you engage with them, and again, anybody can do this, no matter what their education, background, race, history, income level, whatever, any external thing you can think of, any way that we label ourselves, you can engage with these skill sets, because each principle has a certain number of skills underneath them that make them applicable in daily life. And so, since the whole thing was built on research from these change models, it comes down to it. The book really is about change and being the captain of the change that's going on in our lives. And as you noted at the beginning, I'm going to break it down into two types of change. There's internal change and there's external change. And so it's a little easier sometimes to talk about the external. So I think about, in the book, I think I might have mentioned this, that in the 1980s, I was newly married. We've been married 36 years now. So maybe it was the mid to late 80s. Anyways, we bought our first VCR. Do you know what a VCR is?
I do. My favorite movie of all time was Lion King. And yeah, that was on VCR.
There you go. Lion King. I love it. And so we had Lion King on VCR, but we also had TV shows we liked. And at the time, right, when we got this 4-head VCR, I think it was like $400. It took, months and months and months to save up to buy this dumb thing. And I could understand, which was pretty unique at the time, how to set that thing to record a TV show at 4:00 on Tuesday, so I could watch it later, or my wife, or whoever, or one of our kids. And so that was a piece of technology that was really relevant to the time that we had it. Now, of course, over time, right, hardly anybody has VCRs anymore. I've talked to some young people that don't even know what a VCR is, which is why I asked the question. But at the time, it was really pertinent. But, once they kind of went their way and we got DVD players, they became outmoded and it didn't matter anymore. That skill I developed was no longer useful. And today, of course, we probably still get some movies on DVD, but most of us, we stream most of our watching that we do. So we got to know how to log in to Netflix or Amazon or, whatever your favorite source is. And we stream the shows that we want to watch when we want to watch them. So the technology is constantly changing. It's all around us, and it's in entertainment, it's at work, it's in travel, it's in leisure, it's in all aspects and areas of our lives. And you got to keep up with that external change. Does that make sense?
No, that definitely makes sense, because also I'm hearing, and by the way, listen, I'm folks over here talking to David Edwards. What I'm hearing is there are parameters within these change models that if we operate in those change models, that's when we will actually see results, versus for outside those change models, we're just scattered all over the place.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. And so that's one type of change. And the pace obviously is increasing over our lifetimes, right? We keep creating these creative young people, and they hopefully intermix with the creative older people, and they come up with this cool stuff. And so there's this change that goes around us. And it's not just because of its change, it's really to remain relevant and to remain the captain of our life. To me, it's all about that sense of, are you in charge of your life or not? And are you ceding, or are you deciding what to cede to others? Or is it just happening or being taken from you? And the latter, I don't think is a good thing. So generally, we want to be in charge of our lives. We want to keep up with technology so that we can be just simply free to exercise our lives and live them the way that we want to. And so that's really important. But I think it's less important than the internal change, right? So that's the other kind of change that you've got. And this is the change of who I, or who you, whoever is listening to this, is becoming. And this is my fear. And I don't like to live by fear. Fear, almost inevitably has us looking to the past. And I really want to look to the future. When we live in fear, right, that's what happens. But this is my fear, is that far too many of us, without even thinking about it, cede the control of our lives to the influences that are around us, these kind of outside external things. And it could be as deeply personal as immediate family. It could be friends, co-workers, and one of the 3,000 marketing messages that crosses our eyes and or ears every single day, right? Everybody wants a piece of our wallet, and once they have it, they want to grow the piece of the wallet. And that's just a business mantra. And we have to recognize that that's there. And I think it's very important for us to be mindful that those influences are there. But when it comes right down to it, we are the captain of our life. And in our healthcare world, we're the captain of our care team, hopefully. In our family world, we're the captain of how we interact with, in our relationship, we have those around us. Hopefully, we're the captain of what kind of messages we let come into us and how we filter those. And there's a whole ton of detail, obviously, that we can't get into. But this idea of simply having that personal leadership to say, I am going to be the captain of my internal change, of who I am becoming. And that requires some core things. So in my book, I talk about, in the first 3 chapters, for example, or 4, are our values, awareness and feedback, learning, and our intent. Those are the first 4 chapters. They're so foundational and so critical, because without a strong foundation in those 4 areas, we will by default be ceding our internal change, who we are becoming, to something else or someone else or someone else's idea. And if, like myself, let's say you're a Christian, you may decide, I am going to cede these parts of my life over to my Savior, right? But it's not that it happened like somebody forced it on me or snuck it in on me or something. I made the choice to do that. And so that's okay. I think we all make choices, right? We go to work and we make the choice that we cede a little bit of ourselves to, what the employer demands of us. And to a level, I think that's okay. But we should do it knowingly and intentionally. And then we have to draw those boundaries based upon our own values and our own intent, our own awareness, where we draw the line and where some things aren't okay and some things are. Without these 4 early foundations, that's 4 out of 10, we live a life that tends to be random. It tends to be more languishing. It's more fuzzy. We have a lot more regret. With the strong foundations in those 4 areas, we have more meaning in our life. We tend to greater well-being. We have greater clarity and greater focus, so that we can, in fact, say, this is what's important to me. These are the boundaries that I've set up around this. And this is my intent, right? These are my intentions of what I want to become, who I want to be going forward, looking forward into the future. And you can do this at any point in your life. You might be 18 listening to this, or you might be 80. It doesn't make any difference, right? Because whatever you've done through whatever your past is, how long or short it is, the only thing that we truly control is today, and then our intent for going to the future. And so it doesn't matter who is listening to this, what age you are, what your situation in life is. You could decide today, I'm the captain of my life. Nobody else is responsible for me. While I love and enjoy and benefit from relationships at work, at home, with friends, through all the domains of my life, but nobody else is in charge or responsible for me. So I'm taking charge. And you do this step by step. You follow the principles, you follow the various skill sets, and you find over time, you have this amazing life that is of your own creation and making, aligned with others who can support you and help you on the way. And it's really a beautiful place to be.
Once again, listen to I'm Refocused Radio, talking to David Edwards. And I like everything you're saying, because if you think of a metaphor, everything that I'm hearing is almost like the safety of traffic, and you got laws and stuff when you're driving your car. So you have traffic lights, you have lanes, you have all these things, signs, exits, everything is showing you what's coming, so to speak. So it allows you to have a safe trip to wherever your destination is. I think that's the same to kind of what you're talking about with being inside these parameters of change models, because the individual is the core of whatever the goal is. So if you connect the core you with the goal that you have, well, it's like a GPS. You have to put in the destination. You can't just stare at the map all day.
Exactly right. Now, have you read my book, Shemaiah?
Not yet, but I will.
Because it's so funny as you say that. I was, as you said that in the first chapter on values, I actually talk about roads. And, on the freeway, we put barriers in between the lanes. And it's a restriction, right? And all we hear about today is, I want to do more. I want to be more. I want to be expansive. It's all this exciting stuff. But everybody with an explicit sense of their values, by their own design and intent, and wisely so, creates certain barriers that they won't cross. So, for example, I got really upset over 35 years of working about transparency and a lack of transparency. People having like two-faced, double meaning, side agendas, say one thing to your face, say something else, behind your back. I had no place for that. And so I've adopted as a personal value transparency, because I don't believe in these, double agendas, and I don't have any place for it in my life. And so it's a barrier that I set up on purpose. And that's what our values do. They make it so that we can go faster, further, more safely, in a way that makes sense. And so I really appreciate that. Thanks for the lead in. It's so important. I have to tell you, values as the first principle, I was amazed at the amount of research and the benefits. It really blew my mind. And it's such a simple thing, and it's absolutely free. And everybody who's listening, within a couple of hours, you could make your own personal core values explicit. And it will benefit you every day for the rest of your life.
Yeah, man. And once again, I like everything you're saying. And time always goes by fast. We're getting close to time. But another metaphor, sticking to the cars, the other thing too is everything that was put in place for that car to be built. There's all these different parts, but every part is strategic because they work together for you to get to where you're trying to go. So the other thing I'm hearing from you as well is having those skill sets that we develop in our core it's almost like building our car from scratch so that that vehicle can get us to where we're trying to go. What do you think about that?
I love it. I'll be honest with you, though. I love that because I think it's a good metaphor. Personally, professionally, I'm trying to move away from the mechanical metaphor, however. So I think we don't even think about it, but we, through our entire lives, our parents' lives, and our grandparents' lives, have lived within this mechanical metaphor. It's, the age of the machine and the evolution of industry and science and et cetera, et cetera. And there's been all kinds of wonderful, wonderful benefits to that. Just the fact that we have cars, to say the least of them. But I believe that our myopic focus on this kind of industrial metaphor has separated us from our intrinsic, our connection to nature and our connection to one another. I was on a podcast with three young guys last week, and I love the one guy. I'm going to paraphrase him, but he said basically, and these guys were all like college age or just a little older than college age. And he said, we are more connected than we've ever been and less connected all at the same time. Excuse me. And so I think we need to get back to a more natural metaphor. So I liken us in our development through the course of our lives as being more like a cherry tree. And so everything in nature starts small, just like we started very small. And the first thing we start to do in nature is a seed germinates. It starts to put down roots. And once the roots grow enough, they start to push up and it grows a little bit of a stem. Eventually the roots get bigger and then the trunk of the tree starts to form. And then the roots get bigger and the trunk gets bigger and then it starts to grow branches and leaves. And then the roots grow bigger and stronger and the trunk grows bigger and stronger. And the leaves and the branches start to grow fruit and they produce. And, in life, we want lots of production, right? We want to produce. We want to have an abundance. But what happens is when we focus on the abundance and we ignore the core, which is the trunk and the roots, we lose our resilience. We lose our ability to persevere. We lose our ability to make it through the hard times. Just like in nature, the tree might die, the tree will blow over, they'll get some rot or whatever these things when the tree gets out of balance. And what I see in modern society is that we're out of balance. And really, my book is a cry to help us as individuals seeking to be the captains of our lives, seeking to keep up with the pace of change, but seeking to be in charge of our own change, of who we are becoming, that we spend a little bit of time every day focused on our core, our trunk, and our roots, so that as the challenges come and the technology changes and more is demanded of us, there's more load and there's more abundance, we have the capacity built into us to bear it and to bear it well, to bear it naturally and effectively through all the trials and struggles of life. And I think that's a super amazing, wonderful goal that I would hope for everybody who reads the book.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, especially I like what you talked about with we tend to focus more on the end of the goal and the big dream, if you will, but we neglect the process and the little things that build everything, or if, like you said, the tree grows things naturally into its fullest potential, and we limit ourselves when we only worry about, it would be nice if I blah, 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 blah. But what are we actually doing to grow naturally into that opportunity?
There you go. Exactly.
Well, once again, true honor, I'm Focus Radio, talking to David Edwards. You can go to his website, davidredwards.com. And like I said, time did fly by really fast, but what would you like to tell the audience before we let you go and how they can connect with you?
Well, first of all, I guess I would leave you this parting thought. I hope that you spend some portion of your life every day seeking greater light and truth. As you know, this is a podcast of people seeking to understand their purpose better and how to fulfill that purpose, which I think is a beautiful thought. It's a journey of seeking greater light and truth for our lives, and as an extension for those that are closest to us and those that are around us, because it's impossible to develop that without having that kind of positive influence. And your life matters. Whatever your life is like, whatever your challenges, your situation is, your circumstances, it matters. It really does. And I think if I leave that thought with you, you can get a hold of me at my website, as you noted, davidredwards.com. You can find me on Facebook, David R. Edwards, or on LinkedIn as well.
And also, if you are interested, definitely check out his book, Knew You Who Knew. And once again, I want to say thank you, David, for taking time in your busy schedule talking to us today.
Thank you so much, Shemaiah. It's nice to meet you, and it's been a pleasure.
I Am Refocus Radio is brought to you by Foo 4 Star and Holy Crab. Foo 4 Star is a family-owned Asian restaurant in San Antonio, Texas. We have been a local favorite for Asian cuisine for over 10 years. With nothing but full smiles and fast service, you'll be leaving satisfied. Come on in for some authentic Vietnamese food. Holy Crab is one-of-a-kind Cajun Creole-style seafood restaurant located in Universal City, Texas. We offer traditional seafood items as well as chicken and steak. We also offer seafood boils. Come give us a try. You won't be disappointed. You can find these two eateries in Universal City, Texas at 2921 Pat Booker Road.